Kentucky is a beautiful place, especially the Appalachian Mountains in the east. However, many people stereotype Eastern Kentuckians as hillbillies, but the Appalachian dialect is not just a way of speaking, it is a culture that has survived for generations and helped these people thrive in a harsh mountain range. The Appalachian Mountain Range is spread over much of the east coast of the United States, but the eastern Kentucky region is a unique part of Appalachian culture. Migration into Kentucky in the Appalachians began in the early 1700s and continued through the 1800s. European immigrants would travel through the Cumberland Gap and from there into eastern Kentucky. Most of the people moving into the Appalachian area had traveled to America from England and Ireland. These travelers became isolated in the mountains, as many of the following pilgrims preferred the plains of the bluegrass to the Appalachians. This isolation resulted in a unique culture and a continuation of Elizabethan-era vocabulary, while most regions in America mixed and became more standardized. Appalachian speech is one of the most negatively stereotyped dialects in modern America. Eastern Kentuckians have been consistently portrayed as rough, uncultured hillbillies for generations. Many outsiders have dismissed this area as a lost cause, and this has resulted in a lack of business moving into the region, a loss of governmental programs and support, and the general avoidance of the public. Appalachian people have reacted in a unique way to this negative stereotype. Many Eastern Kentuckians have developed a strong sense of culture and identity to oppose the negative ideas of others. Just as some Elizabethan English has lingered in this area, so many traditions have carried on into modern times. One persistent hallmark of Appalachian culture is a rich tradition of complex storytelling. They also retain unique forms of music, quilting, and dance. But of course, the most distinguishing feature of the Appalachian culture is their language. The most distinctive phonetic trait of Appalachian speech is the monophthongization of the vowel sound I. This basically means that the diphthong vowel sound I becomes more of an ah sound. For example, a non-Appalachian speaker says the word like, while the speaker with an Appalachian dialect would say lack. Another easily recognizable characteristic is the dropping of the G in ing endings. For example, fishing would become fishin'. Also, when the diphthong vowel sound O is used at the end of a word, it is often replaced with the phoneme For example, hollow would become holler. Appalachian syntax is also unique from standard American English. One distinctive aspect is a-verbing or a-prefixing. This is when the a sound is placed at the beginning of a verb, such as he was a-goin'. A-verbing does not seem to carry any extra meaning with it, but is simply a trait of speech. The most interesting part of Appalachian English is the vocabulary. A trait that is often shared with Southern English is the contraction of you all into y'all. Another well-known word is yonder. Yonder basically means over there or a far way away. For example, I've got an old horse back yonder means I've got an old horse way back there. One unique word is druther. This is actually a contraction of I'd rather into druther. For example, in some ways, I'd druther have a good bicycle, or if the boss had his druthers, we'd be stuck in the office every weekend.
Well, here's a story for you. Sarah Purry was a veterinary nurse who had been working daily at an old zoo in a deserted district of the territory. So she was very happy to start a new job at a superb private practice in North Square near the Duke Street Tower. That area was much nearer for her and more to her liking. Even so, on her first morning she felt stressed. She ate a bowl of porridge, checked herself in the mirror, and washed her face in a hurry. Then she put on a plain yellow dress and a fleece jacket, picked up her kit, and headed for work.
Similar in many ways to the Appalachian dialect of eastern Kentucky, the Southern American English dialect of the south-central part of Kentucky is said to have originated from immigrants who traveled from the British Isles to call Southern America their new home. The British Isles consist of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales. Interestingly, the Southern dialect is also said to have somewhat been molded by African culture as well. The Appalachian dialect is so unique because the mountains of eastern Kentucky became the immigrants' barrier from the outside world. In regions such as the western part of the United States, particular dialects are less common due to the amount of diversity that humans come in contact with, whereas the immigrants of eastern Kentucky were very secluded. In south central Kentucky, Protestant beliefs, specifically those of the Baptist denomination, are the most common religious beliefs in the area. This area also tends to take the more conservative stance on controversial worldly issues. Life in Kentucky is typically described as slow. Other regions of the U.S. demonstrate a fast-paced lifestyle, whereas those in the South are perceived as laid-back, slow-talking, and in no hurry. Those who speak the Southern dialect are also widely known for being warm, welcoming, and kind. Over time, traits such as these have been defined as Southern hospitality. Unfortunately, a significant number of stereotypes are placed on those with this dialect. Other people from different areas view those with a Southern dialect as ignorant, poor, and inbred, along with another number of falsely perceived stereotypes. Despite the stereotypes that have lingered throughout history, Southern American English is not a substandard form of the language. Although those from South Central Kentucky sound much different than those from the mountains of Eastern Kentucky, both dialects share many similarities. As for the syntax of the Southern dialect, residents of the South Central area of Kentucky tend to add the letter A in front of verbs and drop the ing. For example, he got scared and went a-runnin'. The vocabulary of the South is widely known. Two of the most commonly used words in the South are y'all, a contraction for you all, and ain't, a contraction for am not, are not, and is not. Uniquely, these two popular words among Kentuckians also fall into syntax. Along with y'all and ain't, Kentuckians also use words such as youngins, meaning children, and britches in place for the word pants. Phonologically, those from this region of Kentucky tend to add er onto the end of words. For example, potato becomes tater, and hollow becomes holler. Phonetically, the lowercase o and upsilon diphthong are replaced with the right hook schwa. The Appalachian dialect and Southern American dialect are both unique, but also share more similarities than one might think.
Florida was founded in 1513 by Ponce de Leon, a Spanish explorer, hence the Spanish influence on the state. Florida is a southern state surrounded by water on three sides. It has a much warmer climate than Kentucky. The vocabulary heard in Tampa is much different than Eastern Kentucky. Y'all is not heard often, but rather you guys is more common. Regional language is heard in regards to food, since Tampa is a melting pot of different ethnicities. Foods such as empanadas, guavas, and types of Greek food are some examples of common vocabulary heard in Tampa. Most people living in this part of Florida are middle-class families. There are a plethora of ethnicities represented, such as Indian, African American, Caucasian, Spanish, Cubans, Arabs, and Asians. Because of this, there are a lot of variants in syntax, but for the most part, the following examples are most common. They keep the ing on the end of words, opposed to people in Eastern Kentucky who commonly shorten it to in, such as fishin' instead of fishing. Averbing is not heard, and neither is consonant reduction. You will hear the production of consonants at the end of words when in Tampa. Concerning phonology, like is pronounced like, which differs from Eastern Kentuckians who commonly pronounce it as like. The turn V wedge is pronounced in the word just as just instead of gist, like those in Eastern Kentucky. In words such as hollow, Eastern Kentucky would pronounce it with an er at the end, like holler, and those in Tampa do not do this. And of course, anyone who is not from Tampa thinks that everyone who lives there goes to the beach in Disney World every weekend. However, this is a myth. Although we take advantage of the opportunities, we truly do not drive an hour to the beach every weekend, or, much to your surprise, live in Cinderella's castle. Another stereotype is that Florida drivers will never let you over in traffic, which is indeed true. Those in Eastern Kentucky compared to people in Bowling Green and Tampa vary in their dialect as well as their culture. However, none of these dialects are in any way a substandard form of English.